Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Optex number OP-08C in a black finish is what it is. This is an overhead door sensor. And like most sensors, certainly those that I'm familiar with from Optex, they're very simple and straightforward. There's not a whole lot to do other than mount these and power them on and then make any sort of fine-tuning, so to speak, on the detection area. But other than that, there's not much to do at all. A very petite sort of sensor. Okay, it's going to include obviously the sensor, the cover, the mask, the lens, I should say, and inside of there is where you can mask it off. We'll look at that in a moment. A template for installing. Installation instructions. There's always a lot more to Optex installation instructions than you need. It's written in multiple languages, so you need, you probably need 1/3 of all of that. It's going to include a cable with a connector back to the unit. The installation instructions will tell you the legend of what the wires are. Power, obviously, common, normally open, normally closed. A couple of screws to fasten the unit as well. So let's take a visual tour first. Overall width of the sensor, about 5 3/4. Overall height, about 1 3/4 inches. Overall projection, it's about 1 3/16 inches. Okay, so we can pull that cover off and just get my finger inside of there and just kind of easily pull it apart, and it does come off. And so let's look at the cover first. There's something taped back here, and these are going to be masks that you'll use to trim the detection area should you need to. Otherwise, you'll just probably leave that there. Here is the sensor itself. Wiring information is on the unit. Okay. You're going to wire this depending on what they call the relay inversion switch, whether it's set to fail safe or fail secure, whether you're normally open or which wire you're using for normally open. Technical specifications are also there: 12 to 24 AC or DC, 24 volt DC, 1 amp max, operates at 50 milliamps. Okay, and that's all in the installation instructions. We will show you quickly the lens. So what they want you to do to remove this, and it's in the installation instructions, which we'll look at right here. They want you to insert a slotted screwdriver. I find my fingernail works just fine to carefully pull that out. Okay, I'm going to put this down. The mask has these 2 retaining clips here and here. It also has what they call a knob. If you need to change the detection area, you'll cut that knob off so that you can flip this over so that there is the mark that's on here. If you feel on one end, you're not going to be able to see it on the camera. There's a small dimple that's there, not on the other end, and you'll point that towards the bottom of the sensor. But that knob is there because it allows you to only put this back together one way. Okay, that knob obviously has to go here, and that's just simply the way that I'll push it back together. So, very simple and straightforward. I think what we'll do now is let's switch to the screen view and take a look at some supporting documentation. So here is the item that we are looking at. Not much to see here. By the time you're looking at or seeing this video, there will be likely photographs added. But at this moment, we've got 3 links below this video. First is to the cut sheet, and here is the cut sheet. Passive infrared door sensor. So what passive means is that it is detecting changes in temperature. Changes. So, what would not what would not be a definition of changes in temperature would be an inanimate object placed in front of the unit. Even one that's, moving necessarily. If there's no change in temperature, it's not going to detect. So what a change in temperature would be, generally a person, a human being walking into the detection area, because that's going to certainly present a change in temperature. It can also be mentioned that if you have an extremely hot floor condition, exterior, ground condition, and a person walks into the detection zone, could also not necessarily activate, but that's fairly unusual for that to happen. But nonetheless, they do mention it in the installation instructions, which we will get to. The OP-08C passive infrared door sensor is a reliable, cost-effective sensor for request to exit and security applications. The compact housing makes it easy to install in surface, recessed, or ceiling conditions. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. Flexible installation, up to 13 feet in height, large detection area, which we'll get to, 10 individual zones providing high sensitivity even in large areas. Rotating the spherical lens easily changes the detection area from standard to large size, which is what I had called out earlier, where you remove the knob from the lens and flip it over. By using the masking seals, which are included, they are taped underneath the cover, the detection pattern, size, and shape can be further customized to best fit the application. Compact, sleek design, and is commonly used for all light commercial applications. Recessed, surface-mounted, or ceiling-mounted. Black, silver, or white. I don't know about silver, only black and white I see available. Circuitry minimizes false activations, making it ideal for environments with sunlight, wind, rain, snow, or radio frequency noise. 3-year warranty. Technical specifications, which I'll leave to you to review. They do have their diagram here showing the detection areas of both the standard and the wide and deep, and that's how you orient the lens. It gives you all the math as it lays out dimensionally. There's also a link to the technical specification, which is the same information that we just left for standard and wide detection areas. Technical specifications. What you need to know here really is the voltage, okay? The maximum draw that it will request, and then knowing that it was 1 amp maximum to pass through it. Meaning that it will handle up to 1 amp. It's going to ask for 50 milliamps. It's going to ask for very little. Okay, so it doesn't take much really. But you need that to calculate how much amperage you're going to supply to your circuit. And then, of course, your 12 or 24 AC or DC. Bring whatever you like. There is then a link to the installation instructions. And the column here is the English column. Like I said, you need about a third of it, I suppose, depending on your language. Optex being, I believe, a Japanese company, they're certainly going to produce this information in a variety of different languages. So let's get into the installation instructions. Okay, so here's where we start with the installation instructions. Do not install the sensor beyond 4 meters or 13 feet, and it may not be able to detect human bodies at distance greater than that dimension. Be sure to use a beam switch in combination with the sensor to provide a backup safety device, meaning you need to have, what they're saying is, use some sort of sensor within the space of the door itself, so that when you are underneath the detection zone, like over the threshold, you don't want the door to close on you. You don't want to, if you're standing underneath the sensor where you can't be detected, like literally on the threshold, that door is going to start to close. So you want to be sure that you have proper sensors throughout the entire entry, the access to the door itself, and then the egress path away from the door, so that you're not, so that the door doesn't close on you. Affix the accessory area masking seal properly if you need to. We'll go over that in a moment. If it is not affixed properly, sensitivity will be reduced dramatically, and an entering person may be struck by the door. Not use the sensor to detect objects other than human bodies, because what we said earlier, it must detect a temperature range to activate. A push cart may not have the required temperature change to activate the sensor. You know, a shopping cart, if you're pushing one from outside, you know, and it's 12 degrees outside, I'm pretty sure everything's going to be 12 degrees, is what they're saying. So the cart's not going to trigger the motion of the cart won't trigger the unit itself. The product is a door activating non-contact sensor, which is to be mounted to or into the transom of an automatic door or to the ceiling. Do not use it for other applications. The detection area refers to the space where the sensor body is receiving infrared rays. The method of detection, this output, the product outputs a signal when there is a difference in temperature between the floor surface of the detection area and an entering person, and will be considered difficult when the floor temperature has increased to a point where there is little difference between the person and the floor surface. When someone approaches the door from a direction other than the front, this product detects only changes in temperature and will not detect a motionless object. Technical specs here. We'll go to the next page. We're going to show you the details of the item itself, the body, the relay inversion switch. There is a switch on here that you may have noticed. Okay. I'm just drawing your attention to that part 3. Pardon me, part 2 is the relay inversion switch. 3 is the sensitivity selector, low, medium, and high, which is here, and it says SNS underneath it. Okay. So right now the unit comes shipped from the factory as fail safe. You know, when you lose power, the unit is going to fail open the circuit, and the door will likely open at that point as well. Overhead mounting hole, transom mounting hole are 4 and 5. Yeah, so it has, you know, you're literally able to mount this either to the header or to a transom or up to the ceiling. And the orientation of the sensor doesn't change at all. It's just when we switch back to the screen view, if I don't forget, I'll show you, you know, you can either mount this through these holes here and straight back to the header, or up through here and here, which is actually just shown here and here, to the ceiling. Okay. Installation, you have a template. You want to make sure that you stay within the dimension prescribed. Affix the mounting template to your desired position on the transom or ceiling. Drill the mounting holes, 3.4 millimeter as indicated on the mounting template. Assuming you'll be doing a concealed wiring, drill a hole 8 millimeter. I'm thinking that's about 3/8 of an inch after drilling holes. And that 8 millimeter hole is going to come off to the side. And when we, well, actually, let's see here now. Yeah, I don't see how they're going to want you to mount that hole for concealed mounting. Pardon me. Yeah, sure, I do see that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You will drill that hole. There is a on the template. There's a hole in the center of the unit because you're going to run the wires through the back side of the cover. Okay. Precautions: do not place swaying objects such as a potted plant, flag, or banner in the detection area, as the sensor may not function properly. When using wiring knockout, be sure to install the sensor in a location protected from rain. If exposure to rain, water may enter the housing and damage the unit. Now, they do make rain guards for material like this, but you know, and a rain guard is really just, you know, a Z-shaped piece of plastic. And if you're going to have this on a transom, you know, electronic stores very often have, 30-foot tall facades. There's not anything covering that sensor. You're going to want to look into a rain guard immediately. Now, this is where the wiring comes in. The connector on the cable that you're getting connects to the sensor, but then you have your power, your common, your normally open or normally closed wires, depending on the way the relay inversion switch is set. And again, that was part 2, or item 2, I should say. So what behavior do you want to have when the power goes out, or when the unit is powered, really? Okay, remove the housing cover, attach it to the wall, connect, run your wire. The cable obviously goes back to your controller. Detection area for both standard and wide. Talk about that lens modification in a second. Confirmation of the detection area. This product is made up of the detection areas shown in the diagram above. Okay, selection of the wide and deep detection area and standard detection area. Okay, as we continue to move through the installation instructions, this product uses a method of detecting the change in temperature when a person enters the detection area. According to the background temperature, the detection sensitivity may become higher or lower. I don't think anywhere in here they mentioned directly to change the sensitivity, and I would think that it's very likely that you may not need to change it at all. It appears to be set to medium. You can, however, change between wide and deep detection, standard and the wide and deep detection. And this is where they talk about the lens, the knob, and only when you clip that off can you rotate that over, and this mark is all but imperceptible. But it exists on one end only, and when it comes from the factory, it's at the top. And it's detailed here, this rib or knob, to prevent it being inserted in the opposite direction. Mount the lens, making sure that the mark on the lens surface lies on the mounting surface area. And then they talk about, again, the detection areas and how the product is made up of the detection area. Okay. In this product, it is possible to change between the wide and the standard. We talked about that. The rib. I'm just scanning to see where they talk about masking the unit. They touch on it quite briefly, but nonetheless, we'll take another look at those those adhesive masks that you can apply to the inside. Remount the lens if you're going to switch it around. Operation check. It says wait 20 seconds so that the item can power up correctly. When you enter the detection area, you will have a light. So when the unit is powered up, you'll have an indicator, and then when you are entering, when you're activating the sensor, that light will drop. Maintenance, basically keep it clean. There's nothing beyond just a typical neutral detergent, they say. If the cover becomes dirty, don't get it wet. It's not sealed at all for absolute exterior use. Any water underneath the cover is probably going to short the unit. A little bit of troubleshooting, and like most sensors, if not all, they're so trouble-free. You power them, you trim them in terms of the detection range. You may have one or two other settings, but beyond that, there's nothing else to do. Does not function, check the wiring. There could be a bad, get a voltmeter going and see what's happening with the wiring. Does not operate time to time. The sensitivity might need to be increased. ghosting, operates by itself, is called ghosting. You have to mitigate that problem. I've had a story told where the big box store calls and says our door is continually opening. You know, no one's in front of the door, but it's just opening randomly. Turns out that they had moved a bunch of potted plants and, you know, near the door, or at least within the detection area, and that's triggering it. Dimensional properties on the last page. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Now, just to touch on the sensor again, that little mark, which you can't see, you can only feel it. It's at the top of the unit. Oh, by the way, so when you're going to install this to the header, you'll use, you know, the mounting brackets here and here. If you're going to install it up to the ceiling, you're going to run the screws through here and install it up to the ceiling that way. So back to that little mark, it's here, not here, finger, and you can gently pull that out. Knock that knob off, they call it, flip it around, and you'll have a different detection sort of pattern based on, you know, simply based on where this center line is occurring, and you can't see it, but the way that the lens is shaped on the inside is not equidistant from either end, so that's how you'll switch from standard to wide. And then of course you have these, you know, masks that you can apply here. I'm not going to pull that off because it's going directly to a client. You can kind of read in there what they're looking for, numbered areas of what you want to mask. Okay, not unusual to need to mask, you know, an item like this, but at the same time, it's very likely it's going to come out of the box, you know, perfect for your application. And why is that? Well, because they configure it based on their experience of knowing. Snaps back in really nice. Okay. The one thing I did not indicate was the length of the cable, and I do not like taking these apart because sometimes they're 30 feet long. This one, about 6.5 feet in length is what this cable is. Okay, so because this is going to be mounted up at the header transom, that controller should not be very far away. And there you go. Those 2 screws will probably get you started. You might need some sort of optional anchoring scenario for this. Now, the name Optex is synonymous with sensors. There's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page. And from there, you can view not only all of the Optex products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to several encyclopedic documents, older catalogs, manuals, specification sheets, things of that nature. Any questions on the Optex OP-08CBL for black or any other Optex product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.